the United States, you often hear Valentine's Day referred to as a Hallmark holiday, meaning it's a holiday invented by corporations, or namely Hallmark, to encourage consumerism. Is that accurate? Well,
maybe.
That can maybe be an accurate descriptor, at least with how it's currently celebrated, with grocery stores turning pink as soon as Christmas is over, and the billions of dollars spent on this holiday each year with cards, flowers, gifts, and dinner dates. With respect to Hallmark holiday, Hallmark sells the most Valentine's Day cards each year, but they didn't invent it. In fact, they started printing their own cards in the first place because in 1915, a fire destroyed their entire inventory of Valentine's Day postcards. So they were like, let's just start making our own. Then they bought a printer and went on to becoming the holiday card-making juggernaut we know today. Valentine's Day actually predates Hallmark by centuries, but if you look up the origins of Valentine's Day, pretty much every website links it to Rome and to Lupercalia. The only time I really saw this being questioned was by these few people on Reddit and by this guy. At first I thought, oh, they're just being contrarian. This is definitely the origins of Valentine's Day. But as I looked deeper into it, I realized they're actually right. So let's talk about that. Lupercalia was a Roman celebration that took place on February 15th that started off as a fertility ritual involving Lupercal priests running naked through the streets and slapping women with strips of goat hide. The first time we see Lupercalia linked with Valentine's Day was in a conjecture by two scholars in 1972, and people just ran with it. Their argument is that Lupercalia is a fertility festival that happens close to the same time we celebrate Valentine's Day, and the Pope at the time said that Lupercalia was demonic and wanted to ban it. And the first text we have mentioning Valentine's Day on February 14th is named after him, so he must have replaced Lupercalia with Valentine's Day and called it good. But first, Lupercalia is an ancient tradition that even predated the Roman Empire. By the time of Pope Gelasius, Lupercalia was no longer celebrated as a fertility festival and was known as a festival to ward off plagues. And after he banned it and they then had a plague, they blamed him. But when they tried to blame him for this, Pope Gelasius had to remind people that Lupercalia started off as a fertility festival and had nothing to do with warding off plagues. And he also told them, if you want to celebrate it so much, then celebrate it correctly and go run naked through the streets yourselves. So first, by his time, it wasn't a fertility festival at all. Secondly, the Gelasian Sacramentary is not what it's actually called. Its original name was Book of Sacraments of the Church of Rome. And the Saint Valentine that is mentioned in the text had nothing to do with romance or fertility. So, if St. Valentine's Day didn't replace the Roman holiday of Lupercalia, where did it come from? It actually starts with this absolute legend of his time, Geoffrey Chaucer. Geoffrey lived from the year 1343 to 1400 in London, England, and was a poet, philosopher, astronomer, diplomat, member of parliament. He was knighted. This guy spent a huge chunk of his life just traveling and hanging out with royalty, and he was so good at writing that everybody loved him. The very first time that we see St. Valentine's Day equated with love and romance is in a poem that he wrote in the 1380s. In this poem, he talks about birds picking a mate on St. Valentine's Day, but he was probably not talking about February the 14th here. For one thing, February is still winter, so it doesn't make sense to talk about birds mating in the middle of winter when spring was known for birds pairing as well as courtly love festivals, especially in medieval culture. This poem was written to celebrate the engagement of this king and this princess, and their engagement took place on May 2nd, 1381. May 2nd is in spring, and is also the feast day for a different St. Valentine, St. Valentine of Genoa. Chaucer spent time in Genoa a few years prior, so it makes sense for him to be acquainted with that saint's feast day. Anyway, this poem absolutely rocked the nobles' world. Valentine's Day as a romantic holiday absolutely took off after this poem was written. 30 or so years later, we have our first documented Valentine's Day poem, which was written in 1415 in prison by a French duke to his wife. She passed away while he was still in prison, and they never saw each other again. And even a century later, people were still referencing Chaucer's poem. By this point, Valentine's Day was celebrated in February. The Saint Valentine of Rome was much more widely known than Saint Valentine of Genoa, which is probably why the February date stuck. Valentine's Day poems or handmade cards continued to be popular throughout the years, and by the Regency era, nobles would give love tokens to people they fancied on this day. Then, with the spread of better printing equipment and ease of marketing, Valentine's Day morphed more into what it is today. So, we've established that, contrary to what most sites on the internet say, Valentine's Day does not originate from Lupercalia. And through its evolution over the years, it's become an incredibly popular and commercialized holiday celebrated around the world. In fact, many countries actually have different traditions around this day. In the United States, Valentine's Day is the second busiest day of the year for restaurant reservations, first being Mother's Day, and is the third biggest day for candy sales. In the US, traditionally, the men pay for dinner or buy gifts for their lady on this holiday. In Japan, it's the other way around. On Valentine's Day, girls make chocolate at home and give it to the guys. They also give chocolates to friends, coworkers, and classmates as well. The special guy they've given chocolates to are expected to reciprocate a month later with gifts on White Day. In the Philippines, Valentine's Day is a government-sponsored day for holding mass wedding ceremonies, where dozens or hundreds of couples get married at the same time. In Germany, pigs are just as quintessential to Valentine's Day imagery as hearts are, since they're seen as symbols of good luck and happiness. And in some countries, it's not a day centered on romantic love. In Scandinavia, Estonia, and Mexico, it's a day to celebrate all forms of love, especially platonic. Anyway, so whether you've got that special someone or you're celebrating Singles Awareness Day, thank you so much for listening to what I have to say about this topic. I hope you have a great day. Okay, love you, bye.